Stream sound check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tucson Sentinel reporter Jim Nintzel, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event, and as the voters' education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and cast an informed vote. All registered voters can cast a ballot in the general election, which will be held on November 5th. The voter registration deadline is October 7th. Early voting begins on October 9th. Voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email at debates@kc-a.com. You can text your questions to 408-302-1810, or you can phone your questions in to 480-937-1253. We may not get to all our audience questions, but we'll do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from candidates in Legislative District 23, which includes the Yuma area, parts of rural and suburban Maricopa and Pinal counties, and western Pima County. All registered voters can vote in the general election, which will be held on November 5th. The voter registration deadline, October 7th. Early voting, October 9th, once again. We will kick off this evening by hearing first from the Democratic candidates in the Senate race, who will debate for approximately 1 hour, and then we'll move on to the House candidates and conclude around 7:45 p.m. Only the candidates currently debating will appear with their cameras and microphones on. Candidates, you'll have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements, 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between the opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. Tonight, we have 2 candidates running for 1 state Senate seat: Democratic incumbent Senator Brian Fernandez and his Republican challenger, Michelle Altair, an Air Force veteran who's making her first run for public office. Let's bring in our Senate Democratic candidates, and the order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for opening comments. Closing comments will go in the reverse order. Michelle Altair, will you start the opening remarks, please? You have 1 minute.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Michelle Altair, and candidate. And I'm kind of a different kind of candidate because I'm not coming on board because there's policies and I just all these policies that I want. I'm kind of like I want to bring God back into our legislature. I want to so that's my wheelhouse is bringing God back in. And but just in case you think I'm too spiritual minded, I have been getting involved with all the issues, finding out what people are wanting out there. I'm also the chairman of my legislative district, so I kind of have already been out there with the constituents and talking with them, seeing what they want. And so I'd like to bring a true representation to the legislature to represent the constituents of LD23, not my own agenda, but being that representative says this is what y'all are want, going back out to the people, finding out what it is they want, and just coming back and being their voice. The things I say on the trail, I will do when I get into office. It won't be that I'll shift up when I to make some backdoor deals when I get in. I am who I am, and if I say that that's what I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do. I serve God first. And so that's what the platform that I stand on. So I do operate in a lot of integrity. Being in the military, one of my jobs was liaison. So that's what I plan to do here in the Senate.
All right. And Senator Fernandez, let's do 1 minute with you talking about why you want to be in the legislature.
Thanks so much, and good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you so much to Jim and Clean Elections. I know how hard it is to put these on. I really appreciate all that work. I know all of us do. I always say I'm not a traditional politician, and I guess by now, being 3 years in office, maybe I'm turning into one. But I didn't come here as a politician. I'm a software developer. I'm someone that has always worked to solve problems. When I came into the legislature, I saw how the government was being run and how our legislature is being run, and I really made an effort to change some of those things. And I think that we've had some important movement. While here, I was able to get money for my community, Highway 95, GE Improving Grounds, 195, which is Cedar Chavez Boulevard in San Luis, many millions of dollars to Arizona Western College, which brought many programs to our students there. And then statewide, I was able to work to support education. We actually increased the amount of money we spent on education last year. This year had to cut a little bit back, and then also protecting our early voting, protecting voting rights. That was really important to me. I think that was when I talked to people. One of the big things I always ask is what are we doing to support voting rights? And I've been working along those lines. During my time in office, I work with everybody. I always say the two things I ask of anyone is tell the truth and have a plan on what you're going to do to make Arizona better. And as long as people have those two things, I don't really care about what party they are, where those ideas come from. Thank you.
All right, let's. You mentioned education, Senator Fernandez, and you're up first. What should Arizona do to ensure every school has the resources needed to deliver quality education that prepares every child for the future?
Thanks. So I think that this is one of the most important issues. I mean, I think that when you talk to voters, everyday voters, not voters on one extreme or another. One of the things that they always talk about is education. They want to make sure that their kids have access to a good public education. They know that public education is the only education that's guaranteed. Private education, they can throw your child out. They can do anything they want. They can discriminate against them. But with public education, it's for everybody. We think we need to increase the amount of money that goes to education. We've been doing that, but not enough. For many years, we stopped really increasing the funding for education as our state was growing. And I think that we've seen some of those problems. We see schools that need work, throughout. Many of them in rural Arizona, but a lot of them are also in urban Phoenix. We need to ensure that we're giving that money where it's needed. There's a lawsuit currently pending where I believe that we're going to be going into a settlement at some point. That the education advocates have argued that we've been underfunding the actual capital expenditures for our education by billions of dollars. These are things that we need to fix. We need to ensure that every child can go into a safe environment to learn, and that they get the best opportunity to do whatever it is they want to do.
All right, over to you, Ms. Altair. Your thoughts on what Arizona can do to ensure every school has the resources needed to deliver quality education that prepares every child for the future.
I think first and foremost, you keep throwing money. You can't keep throwing money into a system that's not producing. We're what, 48th or 49th as far as where we fall in the spectrum. We're failing students, and that's because we've gotten away from actually teaching them. You're bringing all these social programs like the DEI, and you're more worried about how they feel than whether they can read or write, because students are being passed over. They cannot function because they're not being taught. So if you want to spend money, it's not so much spending money, it's just bringing in the teachers that actually want to serve and teach the students academics, as opposed to teaching them about what lifestyle they live and trying to push their lifestyle on others. We're failing our students. So no matter how much money you throw at it, if you do not hit the core, which is the people that are actually teaching them and what are they teaching them, you can put and bring in as much money as you want. It's still not going, to improve the state of and the condition that the children are in as far as not learning anything, because we're failing them.
All right. Well, I know
I'd like to respond to that if I could, and I would I would ask that my
Quick
opponent
response back and forth. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you. I'd ask my opponent actually go into public schools, and I think that what you'll see is, I mean, I hear you say DEI. I don't know where that even relates to public schools. I don't see that. I've gone into many public school classrooms. I see teachers that are teaching, but I see the challenges that we have. We've underfunded our schools, and we've actually taken funding and brought it to, for instance, vouchers for people that were already largely sending their kids to private schools in the first place. And these public school teachers have to work in environments that are very challenging. They're teaching the core like education that these kids need to know. But they're doing it in a tough place. So I believe that yes, we're 48th, 49th, but that's because for years and years that's the amount of money that we're spending on people. In the end, you need to spend money on education. It's not cheap, but it's very important. Thanks.
Ms. Alter, would you like to respond?
Yes, for the 2022 election, I actually traveled with a candidate that was running for public school instruction, the superintendent. And so what I found is, we would go to a lot of places. We found out a lot about mismanagement of funds. And if you want to help the students when the money is allocated, instead of going top down and adding, there were some schools that had the principal, then the assistant principal and then, every grade level had an assistant something, because they kept adding administratively. And then by the time you got down to the student, there was no money left for them, or even down to the teacher. There was no more money to give them. So there was a lot of mismanagement of funds. So I would first say, let's take care of where is the money going, because they get quite a chunk of money. But if you're not spending that correctly, throwing more money at it is not going to be the answer. And I say, let's bring it from bottom up, start with the children, and then work your way up.
All right.
And Jim, you're not going to like this, Jim, but I'm gonna talk about that too, because that was Jim. She said something the second time that she didn't in the first, and so what she's talking about is mismanagement of money. I don't see that. When we talk about assistant principals and assistant superintendents, and you're right, those exist in these big school districts. Largely, that's because the state has for many, many years imposed these very tough requirements on these schools and these school districts. Private schools and charter schools are not required to produce those kind of programs, but the public schools do, and it's very costly. One of the things that Senator Bennett, a member of your party, was trying to do is actually change some of those and say essentially like, okay, well, public schools should be kept to the same standards as private schools, which is much lower. And your party didn't want to do that. Your party said that rather had this unequal playing field. So I don't believe that there's mismanagement of funds. And I think that it's probably a value system where we think money should go. But I think that if you want to recruit teachers that really want to work, you have to pay them. It's very expensive to live in Arizona. It's not cheap to buy a house here. It's not cheap to live here. We need to make sure that teachers are actually making enough money to survive.
All right, Ms. Alter, would you like to respond?
Just a quick, still bottom line, if you start and give money and start allocating to the students up to the teachers, and then with the administration, then you'd have that problem solved. But the bottom line is we're still low on the spectrum. We still don't have the students being able to graduate, being able to learn, and being able to go on to the next level because they're not being taught. So throwing money at it is not going to solve it if you do not have the people. And being a teacher, you're supposed to cause your students to learn. So to me, it's not about the student. You've got to work as far as the teachers and what they're teaching the students, and it's not about education. Bottom line.
All right, and Ms. Alter, let's start with you on this one. As long as we're talking about teachers, high quality teachers often leave Arizona or leave the profession altogether. How would you propose to keep them in the classroom, and do you have a plan to attract a new generation of teachers?
I think first of all, when my opponent was talking about the challenges that the teachers are having in the school, being able to talk because of maybe discipline problems, because now instead of disciplining, they want to say, let's talk about your feelings. So I think once that's addressed, you will attract teachers to say, my students are able to beat me up in my class. And then when they get pulled out, all they're told is, let's think about why you did it and think about your feelings, as opposed to saying, let's discipline, because you've got to discipline things out. I know when I was growing up, you were disciplined, and we all you didn't have the issues in the schools that you have. Plus of all, taking God out of it was an issue as well. But if you're going to attract teachers, if you actually give them a voice, as opposed to just saying it's okay for these students to attack me, and they're just given a little pat on the hand and then they come back in. So you will attract students if you give the teachers a lot more autonomy to be able to discipline the students that are causing them the problems.
All right, over to you, Senator Fernandez. How do you keep teachers in the classroom and attract a new generation of teachers?
Okay, let's unpack that for a moment first. I don't know where my opponent is finding teachers that are being attacked in that way. I haven't seen that. And I would love to find out where that is, if that's happening in Arizona. If she's seeing something on Facebook that happens in another state, like that doesn't really pertain to me. I don't see that happening. And as far as taking God out of the classroom, I'll tell you, when I was in school, which, I mean, maybe that was a long time ago, we didn't have God in school either, in the sense that we didn't pray. We said the Pledge of Allegiance and we learned. And I think I turned out, and most of my cohort turned out okay. I think in the end, a big problem here is funding. I'm going to go back to the cost of living. The cost of housing has doubled in the past 4 years. And that, a big part of that, and I'm happy to talk about that later, is about supply. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do, that we can do, working with cities to ensure that we increase the supply of housing. But when it comes to how do we just, get someone to come teach, it's a challenging environment. I wouldn't want to do it. And they need to be supported. And when I say supported, they need to have the support staff that's necessary. If there are kids with learning disabilities, if there are kids with behavioral disabilities, they need that support. But as far as being attacked, I've not seen that.
All right, and as long as we're on the question of school discipline, and we'll go first with you this time, Senator Fernandez. Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Horn has pointed to lenient student discipline as one of the major reasons teachers leave the profession. Do you agree that there is a problem here? And if there is, what's the solution?
I don't agree. I'm going to go back to what I think the problem is. I believe the problem is funding. I believe that teachers that are barely making it, it's very difficult for them to stay in that profession. When you look at the starting salary of engineers, people that leave ASU there, or sales, or any other number of careers, I myself am a software developer. Compared to a teacher, it's night and day in terms of their compensation. That's where the problem is. And we see that in other states, even places like Texas, which I don't think anyone would argue is a liberal bastion, are paying their teachers far higher salaries. We need to look at that. We need to figure out how we can supports teachers in that way financially. As far as what Superintendent Horn says, I've heard a lot from the superintendent. A lot of times I think that the superintendent is also just watching Facebook videos and hearing about things happening in other states. He was talking about teaching a dual language, I believe, at one point. And when asked to find where that was happening, he couldn't identify. I mean, there's a lot of times where I believe that he's just watching videos on the internet and then trying to run our state school system accordingly, which I don't agree with.
Ms. Altair, it sounds like you do believe that Tom Horn is right when he says there's a discipline problem in the classroom.
Yes, there is. And anybody, and you don't have to look at videos, you actually can get out there and talk to people, which is what I do. I don't just rely on social media to get my information. I actually do talk to people. And I know my House Representative, Michelle Pena, who had talked to me, she's part of the education, and she has done some things with different forums and having parents. She shared with me things with parents coming to her and with the problems that are happening in the schools with their students, being afraid to go to school. So it is a problem. So I don't need to rely on social media. I just have to listen to people. And I know in our district, in Liberty 25, in the school district, we now have we have an excellent district because we shifted it from it's Republican controlled, and they got rid of all the DI, all this the social emotional learning type things, and they've gotten back to, and now they're fully at capacity as far as teachers because they were wanting to come in because of how that system is being operated now. So yes, I do agree with Mr. Horn, and we have a district that actually shows how when you're disciplined, when you have that, you will not have those issues.
All right. Question this
I'm
time.
just going to address that real quickly. It's just so everyone knows our school districts and they're designed this way for a reason are nonpartisan. So, saying that a school district is Republican controlled, I think first of all is it's not true. I mean, they're nonpartisan. But second of all, I think that sends a bad message. I don't think that education should be partisan. I think education should be for every student and every parent, regardless of how much money they have or what color they are or any other criteria that you can set, but certainly political affiliation.
Ms. Alter, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, you can call nonpartisan all you want, but you're going to bring the values that you have, Democrat values or Republican values, period. You're not being nonpartisan. You're not laying what your beliefs are down on the table because you've gotten into an office that says it's nonpartisan. And I think that needs to be changed anyway.
All right. This week brought another, and we'll start with you this time, Miss Altair. The school brought another school shooting, or this week brought another school shooting, this time in Georgia. It left 4 students dead, 9 others injured. What actions do you think the state should take to reduce the likelihood of school shootings and other gun violence?
I think one of the things, like when I traveled around, it's having, instead of having counselors or in the schools, let's have some officers in there. Let's have some security. And with regards to teachers, and I know that it's out there as far as teachers being armed. And yes, I do believe that they should be educated. You have some that are ex-military, some people that actually know how to use a firearm. And I think if you're training them, they can have a weapon in the classroom, which will be their first line of defense. So it'll be a deterrent to know, I don't know which classroom I'm walking in where the teacher is armed. I don't know what school has these things implemented. So you'll reduce that as well. Let's secure the schools like you secure some of these, like when I go downtown to the Senate building, and you have to go through a detector to see if you have anything. Those are adults, and they need a detector to get into the building. Whereas the schools with your little children are left wide open. Let's put some more security there for the children than we do for these adults.
All right, over to you, Senator Fernandez, on the question of how to reduce school shootings or reduce the likelihood of a school shooting and other gun violence.
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to start off with I am personally a gun owner, and I think that I believe that is a fundamental right of ours. When I think of schools, I think of a place that should be a safe environment for every student to learn in. I really believe that parents should be confident when they drop their child off to school or when their kid walks to the bus stop or when they get picked up by their friends' parents, that they know they're going to see their kid at the end of the day. I can't think of anything scarier than getting a text message from a child saying, like, there's a shooting and I'm hiding in a closet, or they told me to hide at a desk. I think that what we put our kids through now, where everyone has to go through gun drills and shooting drills and hide in closets and don't make any noise, I think that's really scary. We didn't have that when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we didn't have police that were patrolling the schools. We didn't have teachers that had ARs that were hiding their desk. You didn't know which one had that. That did not exist, and yet we didn't feel that we were in danger in that way. And I think it's ridiculous that the answer for this systemic problem that we're seeing in a lot of places with kids that seem to have access to guns, again, having this other young man, that was, I believe, 14, is absurd. I think that we need to ask ourselves, why do these children have access to guns? What are these parents doing? And we're seeing in some states, I believe it was Wisconsin, or it could have been Michigan. I believe it was Michigan, actually, where the parents were actually prosecuted and put in jail for allowing their child access to a firearm. I think that we might need to look at that.
All right. Let's shift gears from education over to water, another major issue on the minds of voters. And at the federal level, the states are arguing about how to distribute a declining amount of Colorado River water. Groundwater pumping is causing aquifers to drop around the state. There have been a few bills to address this, but nothing major has been signed into law by the governor. What does the state need to do to assure a secure water supply for future generations? And we'll start with you this time, Senator Fernandez.
Yes. So water is a very complicated but very important issue in our district. First of all, water is primarily used by corporations, by companies, whether it's ag or whether it's they're producing other things. They're our primary user of water, not the residents. And actually, we've seen, we're using less water than we did in the 80s, and our population has increased, I believe, 4x since then. So, we're doing, residents are doing their part. We're certainly seeing that, and we're certainly seeing cities do more when it comes to recycling water, which is really important. There's places such as Chandler, I believe, where they're actually making beer out of former, they don't like to say toilet water, but reused water. I think that's all great. But I do think in the end, we need to look and see what it is, where we are going, and when it comes to growth. We're not going to conserve ourselves out of this crisis. With climate change, we're going to see water that's going to be increasingly diminished over the coming years. And we're going to have to figure out how to make more with less. Some of that is going to be conservation, some of that is going to be recycling water. But we are at some point probably going to have to find other sources of water. Otherwise, we're going to have to change the way our economy is generally run in Arizona. But I do think that when it comes down to housing, I think it's really important to understand that 2/3 of your water in many cases is used in the outside. So if you have grass, if you have a pool, if all the things that you use in the outside, the water that's used in your house is primarily, as I said, in a lot of places, recycled. So what we should be doing is figuring out ways to incentivize folks to not use water on, let's say, ornamental grass. I think that there's better ways of using water, and we see that if we drive down streets all over Maricopa County, you'll see grass in area where there's not even a sidewalk. It's just sitting there for just for purely viewing sake. That's something that we can certainly do. We can work with ag, and which we've been doing. We brought money to them through WIFA to help conserve water, drip system primarily, but they're doing other things as well. And they're also using less and less water than they were many years ago for more ag, for more goods, which is great. But it's gonna take a lot of that. We do need to ensure that we keep the 100-year supply rule. That essentially, if you build a house, that you have to have a 100-year supply of proven water. I think that's really important. And I think that we're going to have to look at having more water management areas in areas where we're seeing our water tables go down. That's not popular with some folks, but it's very important to ensure that our residents have the water to survive.
All right, Ms. Altair, your thoughts on how to secure a water supply for future generations?
Yes, and I'll try to keep my comments down to, the minute that we have. But yeah, because I come from my background is more in fashion design. I've started to learn about a lot of different things. I took with the CAP University. I went and I'm listening to the water issues, and what I heard from them, they're saying that the two biggest users of it are the industry and agriculture. And the ideas they were coming up with was how to reduce water for agriculture. And I'm like, wait a minute, people that grow your food. I mean, the people that grow your food, that's where you say you want to take from the people that are growing your food. I went to a Senate hearing, I think it was SB 1221, where they had all the farmers were coming in. They were discussing the water issue. And the gentleman had gotten up there and he said, what you're saying is you want to reduce water for agriculture, the people that grow your food, which means you're going to cause other problems because then the supply is going to be less. And so you're cause issues there. I think we need to look at some things, maybe, having built the largest water park in, wherever here in Glendale, I think that took up a lot of water. And we have the largest one here that's so-called in the desert. I think there's some things we have to look into, but climate change is not one of them. I've been here in Arizona for 30 years and the weather has not changed. So we're not doing anything differently than 30 years ago, but I don't think that's the issue. I think we just have to watch, all the building that's going on. The water is going somewhere. You're building all these houses, all these warehouses, all this stuff. And then you're saying, well, we'll build all these houses, but we're going to take away the agriculture. Bring all the people in, less food. I don't think that's the answer. So we go to the farmers and ask them what they think and how to address it.
All right, I want to switch over to housing because you guys have both brought that up. And I will start with you this time, Ms. Altair. And what specific policies would you support to make housing more accessible to middle and low income earners?
Well, right now, I think the problem is because of the economy. I mean, it's out of reach for a lot of people because of the economy. And when you have a lot of you see all these houses going up, just going up and going up. It's like is everybody from every other state planning on moving here? I've been here 30 years, and within the past 2 years, the amount of building and who's building. What companies is it large corporations just building all these and then charging out, you had California. I know years ago you had a lot of people selling their homes in California because it's a lot more money they're getting out there. So they come here and then they're willing to pay a lot more than what we were paying here because they sell their house for millions that only cost a couple $100,000 here. So that kind of drove it up as well. So if we just kind of put just watch who's actually doing the building, see what they're what they're getting, what incentives they're getting. And so I think if we do that, but right now it's about the economy because it's out of reach for everyone. I wouldn't sell my home in this economy right now because I wouldn't be able to afford another one.
All right, over to you, Senator Fernandez, on the question of making housing more accessible for low and middle income earners.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree to the extent that it's about the economy, but it's about probably the most basic of economic principles, which is supply and demand. If you have a lot of supply, if we had, I mean, you need to look close to Detroit, for instance. Detroit, when they started losing population, people were just leaving Detroit in droves for a lot of reasons. The housing costs went down. I had a friend that bought a house for $5,000 there, and you see that in some places to this day. But over here, we just don't have enough houses and throughout Arizona, but certainly Maricopa County. We have companies that are moving in here, TSMC being only one of them, but others that are expanding that have been here for years, such as Intel. And then we have, we're making batteries like crazy. We're making electric cars. It's a great thing, but what always happens is the need for housing. I went to Taiwan with Senator Peterson, and we spoke with the vice president of TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, who's the one that actually selected Arizona. And I asked him what the challenges were, and there was a list of them, and won't go into all of them. But the first one he said was housing. He said it's very difficult for them to find housing for their folks. And so what they've been doing is buying up apartment complexes, buying up condo complexes and putting the people in there, but that brings the cost up for everybody else. So we need to build. But the way we need to build, though, is in a smarter way. I don't think that we need to go and just continue to take state land and just build single family homes there at 6.2 per an acre. I'd like to see us do infill. I'd like to see us do a more dense building in some of these areas. And I think that we've seen that State Fairgrounds, for instance, and also the land close to the Capitol, which is largely vacant. If we develop that, we could have 150 to 200,000 units very quickly with mixed use. That to me is a better way of doing this than to say, like, let's take another swath of land and let's let someone build sometimes as few as 2 per an acre, which that's just not sustainable for the way we're growing.
All right, and we'll start with you with this question, Senator Fernandez, staying on the housing topic. There have been some proposals at the legislature that have sought to address the housing crisis through deregulation of city zoning. Do you believe that deregulation of city zoning laws is a crucial part of the solution to Arizona's housing crisis?
I think that that's an element to it. I think that some of what we saw was happening in that case were developers trying to take advantage of the status that we're in currently. Right now, with higher interest rates, a lot of the projects that they would normally have been building are not penciling out, and we're going to see them come back. Interest rates are going to start going down again, and those are going to come back online. But I think that a better way for us to do this is to work with cities and treat cities as the partners that they are. Work with them and figure out how they want to do this. And if they insist on, let's say, not coming to the table, then we can certainly supersede those efforts. But I think that people move to cities for a reason. When people move to Goodyear, it's a much different environment than when they move to Phoenix or Scottsdale or Tempe, and they expect a different environment. And I think that if the legislature continues doing what they've been doing for the past 30 years, which is just sort of taking authority away from the cities, we're just going to have one very big, very not well managed city in Maricopa County. And I don't think that helps anyone.
Ms. Altair, your thoughts on whether the state should override local zoning in order to encourage more development?
No, it needs to stay right where it is within the cities. I mean, I know within ours with the Goodyear mayor, and he was talking about how they like to have managed to say, we like the aesthetics. You're not just going to be able to throw up anything, any old kind of thing that you want. You have houses here, and then if you have not the zoning, then when you moved into a certain neighborhood, then all of a sudden it's like, what is that structure going up behind me? And just changing that dynamic of the city, the people that live there, the people that's why you have your local governments. Let them still, they're there. Let them still have the autonomy to do what's best for the city, not just saying somebody that lives in another area and just wants to dictate what someone in another city is doing, and not knowing that, not caring about what the aesthetic of the city is. No, the state should be not be involved in that, and changing zoning laws. Keep it at the local level.
All right, and we'll start with you with this question, Ms. Altair, and it's on the topic of abortion. In your opinion, should abortion be illegal in all or almost all cases? Should it be illegal in most cases? Should it be illegal in most cases, or should it be completely legal?
Being a disciple of Christ that I am, I have to go by what the Word of God says, and I cannot come into agreement with any type of abortion. I know, people say, well, if it's rape, incest, or the life of the mother, actually 99% of it's only 1% of the abortions that all those fit in that category. And so those are rare occasions. But let's take one of the occasions. I happen to know someone, I didn't know that, but when I spoke out, but I said, there are people that are out there that are a product of rape. What do you say to them? That I can't believe your mother actually had the nerve to want to give birth to you. But what they don't tell you is that, because abortions for convenience, because that's what 99% are. They probably tell them one thing, but what they don't tell them is the turmoil that you're going to go through all your life. I spoke to a woman, she was still in turmoil after 40 years. So no, I'm not in agreement with, but I know there's something, that we still have for anybody that still wants to participate in murdering their child. We do have the 15-week law still here in Arizona. So we still have those on the books. But I cannot, as a disciple of Christ, come into agreement with it.
And I take it you would be opposing the Abortion Access Act on the November ballot.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Because yes.
Oh, go if you'd like to explain. Go ahead.
Well, it addresses, if people don't understand really what it's about, it literally is giving you carte blanche to have a abortion up to birth. Literally, a woman can be saying, I really don't think I can do this, which is what we always say. I know man has had birth, and I know when I gave birth, au natural, I was like, I can't do this. And so if you have somebody saying, wait a minute, you don't think you can do it? We have a solution for you. It can be done up to birth. It takes the doctor-patient relationship out of it. Parents don't have any say because they're not allowed to know. So what can happen if you've got a girl that's being abused, that's being trafficked, her abuser can take her, knowing that she got pregnant, can take her to get an abortion, and no questions can be asked because that's what the law will allow. They can do that. So now you're doubly affecting this person and their life. What I would want to do is just pray for people, because you're still going to be going, you're still going to need healing. Either way, whether you've chosen that option or you're going to, if you've chosen that option, you're going to need some kind of healing, and that's what's not available to people. They just kind of do the procedure and let them go. And also, you don't have a provider. It doesn't have to be a provider doing it. Your masseuse, because they're in healthcare, can prescribe an abortion pill and what have just so.
Let's jump over to Senator Fernandez for his response on number one: should abortion be illegal in all or almost all cases? Should it be illegal in most cases? Should it be legal?
You don't even have to list all the things, Jim. I'll just tell you, I support any person's right to have an abortion. I think that it's between them and their medical provider, not their masseuse. I don't believe that a masseuse can sign a prescription for that, but that's pretty interesting. I disagree with legislating by anecdote, and I think that that's the problem that we've seen. And again, I'll go back to the Facebook videos that I suspect that Superintendent Horn watches pretty often. When Yes, I mean, situations happen, and you can always point to something. Like I hear that all the time. Like, well, this always happens. Well, no, I watched this one video that one time in 1967. The truth is that in whatever percentage of cases are rape, incest, or life of the mother, I don't believe that that's the government's business. I don't believe it's their responsibility. I believe that that right is inherent with that person. And I have trouble telling someone that because someone decided that their values superseded, their own, that somehow they have to have a baby. And it certainly is not until birth. I mean, I hear that from my opponent's party quite a bit. It's not true. That's not what the number of weeks are that this AAA allows. But whatever, I disagree with her as much as I possibly can.
All right. I want to ask about infrastructure in the state because it's so critical for economic growth. What areas of Arizona's infrastructure do you believe needs the most investment, and how would you prioritize that funding? And we'll start with you, Senator Fernandez.
Yeah, so I think that one of the big problems that we have, and this is, you'll hear this all the time, is the gas tax. The gas tax is a static number that's been the same for many, many years. No one's ever really wanted to raise it. And we have fewer people that are driving in gasoline vehicles, and the vehicles they are driving are far more economical than they were in the 80s. So what we're seeing is fewer and fewer dollars that are actually going into these HERF funds, which go to cities and the state to actually improve our roads. So we need to figure out how we're going to get more money to rural areas in particular to maintain our roads. And I think that any one of us, I mean, I certainly drive a lot. And I'll drive on side highways sometimes because, the interstate might be jammed at a time. And I've seen places with potholes that I had never seen in America before, that I'd seen in other countries. And there's even some areas where they paint little white circles around them. They were around Casa Grande. And I'm like, why are these white circles? And they were just to show you where these potholes were. So we need to invest in that infrastructure. I think that that's roads. I think we need to invest in education. Our schools really need to improve their facilities. I mean, let alone the actual teaching, but the facilities need to be improved. Those are the two big ones. But I think that we're a growing state, we're a maturing state. I think when we're a pretty new one, 1912, we're the 48th state, and for many years we were kind of just shooting from the hip and just continuing on, and we'll just get to that later. We're at the later point. We need to put ourselves in a situation now where we're actually improving our infrastructure.
All right. Ms. Altair, same question to you. What areas of infrastructure do you think are the most important for the state to improve?
I think, for me, as just being a constituent, somebody who's just the we the people coming in, because it's not that's not my wheelhouse as far as thinking about having thought about infrastructure as transportation, but I would say improving the roads, and maybe cutting back, maybe instead of putting all that light rail stuff in, which I know doesn't really get that much usage, maybe that money could be go into repairing all the roads instead of allocating money to create that system.
Yeah, all right. Issues with inflation, very important to folks out there as they're seeing their dollar purchase less. What, if anything, can you do as a state lawmaker to help ease some of the inflation and its burden on Arizona families? And we'll start with you, Ms. Alter.
Well, I don't know. With the economy, it's kind of like helping out, not handing out, because that's a problem. You don't hand out, and that's what it is. With this one, with the ones that are coming in, it's like give up. We will serve us and we'll give you. That's not the answer. I say having some more opportunities as far as people building businesses and helping people on, embracing entrepreneurship and having people embrace that, and then not having a situation where you shut down their business after they've opened it up for a year and worked very hard and put in a lot of money by shutting it down, saying you're non-essential. I think helping to foster that entrepreneurship. You give a man a fish, he'll only eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, and he'll be able to feed his household for forever, teach his children. So I think if we put in some programs to help foster that, I think that would help out.
All right, over to you, Senator Fernandez, on easing some of the inflation and its burdens on Arizona families.
Sure. I think, we've seen the rate of inflation decrease. Now, what we haven't seen is the amount that it increased in the years prior actually come down, of course. But I think that, gasoline prices go up and down. Right now, it's down, much to the chagrin of Russia and Saudi Arabia. We see oil that I believe is at $72 a barrel. And so if you go to the gas pump right now, you'll actually see that reflected in your bill. But I think the biggest thing that people see, aside from groceries, is housing. I mean, I think that, and we talked about this before, but when it comes to apartments, when it comes to housing, when people are paying so much for them, when young people are getting started and graduate from college, and I tell people this all the time when, I hear and this is related to student loans and colleges, and you'll hear older people say, like, I worked my way through college, and and I finished college, when I finished college, I bought my first house the next year. My dad graduated from the University of Arizona many years ago, so many years ago that he put himself through college working at a gas station. He was able to do that. That's not possible anymore. It's impossible to put yourself through school with any job. So we're seeing now students that are taking on student loans just to finish school, and then they would come out from college and they have these student loan bills that are pretty large. They're basically sometimes a car payment, and now they have an environment where that house that that person would have paid half of their income is now 10 times their income. That's an impossible burden to expect on folks, and I think that's what we're seeing when people complain about inflation, and rightfully so.
All right. I want to shift gears over to immigration, ask a few questions about that. Starting with, do you support Prop 314, which would, among other things, get local law enforcement involved in immigration enforcement? And we'll start with you, Senator.
Okay. I don't support it. This is another unfunded mandate. And, first of all, immigration is a federal purview. That's not our purview. It's popular, I know, to talk about it. And it's certainly one of the things that I hear, Republicans talk about and wanting that to become an issue. But the problem with that proposition is that it allows local police, as you said, to arrest people, but it doesn't provide the funding for that. So we had a local police chief in our district in San Luis who actually spoke against that. He came up to the Capitol and spoke at a press conference about that and said that, look, we can't afford this. We don't have the manpower to do this. And I mean, I know there's probably no questions on this, but if you ever look at the Department of Corrections, the number of prisoners are increasing right now. we already are going to end up in a crisis with our prison system in terms of cost and in terms of the number of cells that are available. So if you're putting more people in there, you're only adding to the problem. And the state did not provide any funding for it. They just, I believe it was just a political gimmick.
All right, over to you, Ms. Altair. Your thoughts on Prop 314 on the ballot this November?
Well, first of all, I think, if you're going into the legislature, you should learn some things about, what is the federal government's responsibility and what is the state's. Right now, we have an open border, and the federal government is tasked with securing our border. When they don't do their job, that's the state's responsibility to do it. If the prisons are being overrun, it's because we're allowing a lot of criminals. The other countries are emptying out their criminals and they're coming over here. And so as far as immigration, let's close up. Yes, I do agree. We need the people on the border. I went to a board of supervisors meeting, and there were so many sheriffs in there to protect the board of supervisors. I was like, if you had them on the border, we wouldn't be having any problems there. So yes, we do need to be on the border. But if we close that wall, if we build that wall, you wouldn't need as many people on that border protecting it. But it is the state's responsibility because the federal government has not done their job. And the citizens of this state, of this country, deserve someone to protect them. And to say, well, you can just let everybody just flood in, and we don't need to have anybody there to stop the criminals, I think is ludicrous, and we're paying the price for that.
Can I just ask a question of what county was?
Oh, good. All right, Brian, I'll let you.
Thank you. I just have a question for my opponent, if she would. What county was that you said?
I'm sorry? I'm answering the questions of the moderator.
All right, I want to bring this to a question from the audience, which is directed to Ms. Altair, and it's knowing that you are former military, how would you go about helping to defend our borders when you are elected to the Senate?
I think the one thing that is at our disposal is the National Guard. And why not? Until we get this thing under control, why not? They're supposed to be there to protect us. Let's utilize them. We're not saying if you can it's like peace through strength. If you show strength, you don't even have to do anything outlandish. Just show that force, just show that presence there, and not keep enabling people to just walk on across. That's the problem. Stop enabling them. Stop giving them the carte blanche. I've been down to the border. There's a QR code down there, you scan one of them, it's saying, oh, let's make your process really easy on how to come in. These are the things you need to do. Everything is just laid out for them. And for those that have never been down to the border, it is unbelievable. So we need people down there until we can get that border secured.
All right. Senator Fernandez, would you like to respond to that?
Not really, no.
Okay. I want to ask one more question on the immigration issue, and that is, and we'll start with you, Senator Fernandez. The state and Governor Hobbs has been helping with the processing of legally processed asylum seekers when they are released from Border Patrol custody, and helping them move on out of the state to their next location. Down here in Tucson, Pima County has been doing a very similar operation. Should the state be involved in that particular step of helping people who have been legally processed and seeking asylum to have a place to go and then move on?
Yeah, and I mean, this is actually a funny story. So, I mean, I'm friendly with people on both sides of the aisle, and I have a good friend in the House. I'm not going to name him, but I was speaking with him, and he was adamant that 90% of the people that were crossing asking for amnesty were staying in Arizona, and specifically by the border. So I called the Pima County Public Health, who is coordinating the efforts in Pima County, and Yuma County. It's former Senator Amanda Aguirre's nonprofit. And I spoke with them, and it turns out that less than 1% of them are staying in Arizona. We've been helping to facilitate these folks going to their families. As far as the way the government runs that operation, I'll be honest, I'm not an immigration lawyer. I don't know how the asylum system works. But I know that there are specific metrics that they have to meet. They also have to go to some sort of interview process, and they have to go to court later. But our system is ensuring that it's been done in a safe way, that we test them to ensure that they don't have any diseases or communicable, and then help them get on their way. And I think that for a variety of reasons, it's a great idea.
Ms. Altair, same question to you. The legally processed asylum seekers who have come across the border, should the state and local counties be involved in assisting them in moving them on to their next location?
The term that you use is legal. And I don't, I've been hearing numbers because I go to different, I listen to different people who are familiar with what's going on. And there are very few that are actually asylum seekers. When you have the majority of people, and you can watch, you get the majority of people that are coming over are military age men. And then you have the issue of, before it was 85,000 children, now it's up over 100,000 children that are missing. Where are they? And what family were they with if the children are missing? These aren't families that are coming across. These are military age men. These are unfortunately children being trafficked across this border. So very few asylum seekers are in the bunch. This is just whatever, people are not blind. They know what's going on. You have families that are torn apart because of the fentanyl. That, I know some Gold Star people that have been lost their children to fentanyl. You have them that have been killed by a lot because of illegal immigration. So the issue is not the legal, because I don't think there's been many legal people coming over. I wouldn't have a problem if that was legal immigration, but that's not what we have here. We have illegal immigration.
We are just about out of time, believe it or not. This is going very quickly. One quick, just give a one-word answer to this one, and then we'll go on to closing statements. And we'll start with you, Ms. Altair. Do you think that the elections of 2020 and 2022 were legitimate?
No.
All right. Over to you, Senator Fernandez. Do you think the elections of 2020 and 2022 were legitimate?
Yes.
All right, we'll go to closing statements. We will start with you, Senator Fernandez. You have 1 minute closing statement here.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much to Arizona Clean Elections. I think all of us appreciate being able to speak in a candid and I think hospitable manner with our opponents. And I appreciate my opponent being here. I understand that the House Republican decided not to come and not to be a part of this debate. And I think it's really important to speak to our constituents and let them see who we are. I have been in office now for 3 years. I was appointed to replace my mother in the House and then ran for the Senate and won. I've worked very hard on both sides of the aisle, ensuring that we have our elections are fair and that it's also easy for people to vote by mail, because that's what the vast majority of both parties have been doing. It did throw me a little bit that my opponent still does not believe that the elections were fair, but I fundamentally disagree. I believe that we in Arizona are looking for some very simple things. We want a public education system that works for everybody. We want housing. We want good jobs. And we want to ensure that we're going to be able to sustain ourselves for this generation and the generations to come. And I think that what many of us are doing in the legislature right now are ensuring that will take place. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Altair, 1 minute closing statement from you.
Well, first of all, as far as, I'm going to address the election thing. I worked the audit, so there's things that I saw that I can't unsee. I saw things that I can't say, don't believe your lying eyes. I know what I saw. I know what I did. But for this election that's coming up, it's not about Republican and Democrat. It really is not. It is literally good, evil. It is about good and evil. And we have had over 300,000, almost 300,000 evangelicals, those who say they serve and worship God, that do not even participate in the voting process. And that needs to change. We implore you to get out there and vote your values. Don't look at the name. Don't look at the picture. Don't look at the party, because it's not about Democrat versus Republican. look at the values. I have not served a legislature, but I have voiced my opinion both at the Senate, at the Board of Supervisors. You can see videos about things that I've said, and I've never wavered from the things that I say. So you can, and for my constituent, go to ACT. There's an app called Activote, ACTIVOTE. You can go on and find out and plug in all your legislators, find out how they voted on some issues, and then vote your values. It will be so important this election to vote your values. So that's my what I implore for those that call themselves Christian, evangelical, that call themselves having some kind of religious background. Look at what we represent, what we bring, and vote your values.
Very well. This does conclude our Senate debate, but hang on, because we'll be talking to the House candidates next. I want to thank our candidates for participating tonight. I think we've had a lot of disagreement that shows where both of them are coming from. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the November 5th election, and we encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information, and we will be right back with the House candidates. Hello, I'm again Jim Ninsel with the Tucson Sentinel, in case you're just joining us. And we are having the second debate of the evening featuring the candidates for the House of Representatives in Legislative District 23. It includes the Yuma area, parts of rural and suburban Maricopa County, parts of Pinal County, the western part of Pima County. And the Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of our event tonight. The state's voter education agency, Clean Elections, is the official sponsor of Arizona debates. So voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. If you're watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email, debates@kc-a.com. You can text your questions to 408-302-1810, or you can phone them to 480-937-1253. We may not get to all our audience questions, but we will do our best. And we are continuing now with two of the three candidates running for two seats in the Arizona House of Representatives. They'll join us for a discussion about their campaigns for about 45 minutes tonight. Candidates, you'll have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements, 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. And we encourage an open exchange of dialogue between the candidates. And if you feel the need that you want to add on to what another candidate said after they conclude speaking, you certainly may do so. We just want to remind everyone that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment, and our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate can vote in an informed manner. Our candidates running for the State House of Representatives are incumbent Representative Mariana Sandoval and Matias Rosales, a San Luis City Council member. Incumbent Rep. Michelle Pena, a Republican seeking a second term, declined to join us this evening. We will allow the candidates to speak in alphabetical order by last name with their opening comments, and closing comments will go in the reverse order. Councilman Rosales, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Again, thank you for having us here and being the host, and thank you to Clean Elections. My name is Matias Rosales. I'm native of, been living in Arizona already now for 21 years. My wife and myself moved here from California to start and raise our family. We traveled the county of Yuma and fell in love with this little small community of San Luis, which is part of LD23 district. I've been a realtor for the past 18 years, where I've been fortunate to have helped over 1,000 families purchase their first home or investment homes and grow their wealth as part of the American dream. I've been serving my community as a council member for the past 12 years, finishing off my third term. I served about 7 of those years as vice mayor to the city of San Luis, where I have served and continue to serve on many boards related to economic development and infrastructure needs. I'm the chairman for the Greater Yuma Port Authority, chairman for the Yuma County Planning and Zoning, and serve on the Greater Yuma Economic Development Board. I've been fortunate to be part of major projects that have been supported by Ms. Mariana Sandoval and also Brian Fernandez. We were able to bring in $25 million to our community for the Cesar Chavez expansion, Highway 95 remodelization. And the big one is working 12 years hard, closely with our local and state representatives and federal. We were able to bring in $380 million to our community for a new port of entry. I'm running for the state's house because I want to continue this work. I want to continue to be able to help our community, not only here in San Luis, but throughout District 23. And see if we could make other communities like San Luis continue to be one of the safest communities throughout our state. If elected, when I'm elected, I'm planning to continue to work together with everybody on both sides of the aisle, because at the end of the day, we're here to work for our community, our voters, and we want the best for our families to grow up and raise their families. Thank you.
All right, and Representative Sandoval, your thoughts, 1 minute opening statement on why you want another term at the legislature.
Thanks, Jim. I'll start again by thanking the Clean Elections for hosting this event, and Jim and Brian and Sarah and all the tech people behind the scenes that are helping us make this possible. Thank you also to all the people watching online. Your engagement is important and it means a lot to us. For those who may not know me, my name is Mariana Sandoval. I am currently serving as state representative in Legislative District 23. I want to thank every single person that voted for me. It's been a pleasure and honor to serve you. And I initially ran to help strengthen our public schools, to advocate for universal health care and improve our economy, and protect our natural resources. I'm the proud wife of a UA 469 union member, a plumber. I'm also a mom, and I work tirelessly to make sure that not only my kids thrive, but make sure that all the kids in Arizona are thriving. I'm also a small business owner, so I understand the struggle, and I advocate to ensure success of all small businesses across Arizona. But most of all, I'm not a career politician. I don't come from wealth, but rather from humble beginnings. So I understand and share in the struggles of everyday working families, because I live them as a legislator that makes $24,000 a year. It is these experiences that drive my commitment to represent Arizona's working families, because policy is personal to me. I hope to earn your support and your vote on November 5th or before if you vote by mail. Y para aquellos que hablan español y están viendo este debate, les agradezco su atención e interés por informarse sobre sus candidatos. Espero poder ganarme su apoyo y su voto en las elecciones presidenciales de este noviembre. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
All right, I think you both have mentioned education, and I want to start with that. And what does Arizona need to do to ensure every school has the resources needed to deliver that quality education that prepares every child for the future? And we'll start with you, Representative Sandoval.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's simple, right? And it's the reason I got involved in politics. It's the reason I served on the school board, noticing that our education system is constantly ranking at the bottom. And it's funding. It's very simple. We are at the bottom of the funding. I think Utah and another state are just ahead of us in per pupil funding. And in 2007, when the recession occurred, funding was cut across the board for all of the public schools. And to this date, that has not been restored. In fact, we have the Republican-led legislature has enacted universal vouchers that accounts for half of our deficit of this budget that we just passed in June. So that's what we need. It's very simple. We need to fully fund our K-20 public schools, because that includes the universities, particularly Maricopa County, the community colleges. They don't receive zero funding from the state. And so we need to make sure that we are fully funding our public institutions so that we can honor our Constitution as well when it says that public education should be free or as free as possible.
All right, over to you, Councilman Rosales, and your thoughts on delivering the resources needed to prepare our children for the future.
I totally agree with Representative Mariana Sandoval. It comes down to allocation and funding of our school systems. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I have 4 kids. My kids have grown up here in San Luis and attended elementary, junior high, and I see the difference that the different school systems have across the state. But in order to be able to improve our schools, not only in rural but urban areas, we have to make sure that the funding is there for our educators. And when I say educators, I'm not just talking about the teachers, I'm talking about the staffers, the bus drivers, cafeteria workers. Everybody is paid sufficient for them to be able to do their job and feel proud of being an educator in our state of Arizona. By doing this, there's no reason why we can't bring our state, as mentioned by Brian Fernandez earlier, is 49th in the country. We should be in the top 10 as Arizona has been growing in the past 10 years. I am honored to be endorsed by the Arizona Education Association. And I agree as well. Some of this spending and funding that our opponents support in regards to not having accountability on how the ESA voucher program funds are being spent. That program was made to help families in need, not to help people buy expensive Lego sets, or even recently, if you guys have seen the news, Doom buggies or Can-Ams, whatever they're called, those activity cards out there. We have to make sure that the money is being spent where it needs to be done, so our educators could do their job, and then our kids could get the education they need, so we could go ahead and be the best state in the United States for education.
And this is a question that came up in the earlier debate, but high quality teachers often do leave Arizona, or they leave the profession altogether. How do you keep them in classrooms, and how do you attract a new generation of teachers? And we'll start with I think it's Councilman Rosales' turn to go first on this.
And that's a very great point. Being so close to the California border here in my own community, I know several teachers that, even though it breaks their hearts, they travel to California, to our neighboring cities in El Centro and Calexico, to go work in California, because they have less kids in those classrooms. They're making $25,000, $30,000 more a year, and they're getting home earlier, even though they're driving an hour away to a different state. There's no reason why our teachers and our residents, our youth that grew up here in our communities and got educated and came back and they want to serve their students, need to have to leave the area or leave our state to be able to support their families. Because at the end of the day, we all want the best for our family. Their heart's in the right place. They want to be teachers, but we also got to make sure that they have what they need to provide to their families. And being so close to California, I see that all the time. I know 5 teachers that carpool together every day over to the California side, and they were great teachers. They're great teachers here in our community, and we lost them because of the pay. It comes down to the budgeting and how we could compensate our teachers for doing the hard work that they're doing on a daily basis.
And Representative Sandoval, you served on a school district. You're familiar with the issues in education. Your thoughts on how do we retain teachers and encourage new ones to get into the business?
It's very simple. Pay them a living wage. I mean, it's not hard, right? These educators spend 4 years doing their undergrad, some of them with multiple master's degrees, still paying loans, and they're making 45,000, 50,000 a year. And then in addition to that, a lot of the educators that I spoke to when I was on the school board would tell me how expensive their medical insurance is. A family of two, husband and wife, they had a premium of $1,000, and then you have to meet the requirement of spending before they actually cover, another $1,000 or $2,000 per person. It's simply expensive. I introduced a bill to enact a study committee to study because educators in Arizona currently are allowed to be in the same state retirement system as state employees. At the time when I served, I was a state employee I'm still a state employee, but I was working at the Attorney General's office, and I thought, I have two kids. It's my husband and I, and it's two of us on the insurance, and I pay $200 a month in premium. Why can't we add the educators to our state benefits program? The state has a bigger negotiating power. The state can bring in the educators to the same state benefits that other employees have. And so I wanted to just get an exploratory committee to study this issue, right? To see how we can do that and assist teachers, because that is also a way that you put more money in their pockets by, if they're paying less in premium, that's more money in their pockets. And of course, my bill didn't even get a hearing. And so the bottom line is we need to pay them a living wage and have affordable health care for everyone in Arizona.
And it also came up in the earlier debate that this week we did see another school shooting, this time in Georgia. 4 students dead, 9 others injured. What actions do you think the state should take to reduce the likelihood of school shootings and other gun violence? And we'll start with you this time, Representative Sandoval.
Okay. So we need sensible gun policies, right? We need to make sure that people are safe and responsible gun owners. We have seen many fall into senseless gun violence and mass shootings, and it breaks my heart. And I'm devastated by yet another shooting. And so we need to make sure we have address the people that have mental health issues or have been have felonies of domestic violence, and assure that we establish policies for common sense gun reform. We also need background checks, universal background checks, to eliminate the loopholes and make sure that we have red flag laws in place. And of course, because of the makeup of our legislature, that hasn't been possible. We haven't been able to do that in Arizona.
All right, Councilman Rosales, your thoughts on strategies to reduce gun violence, particularly related to school shootings?
That's one of the topics that I wish we all had that answer, because I don't think anyone's going to debate that we don't want to see that happen in our schools. We want to send our kids to school and make sure that they come home safe. As a parent and not a parent, no one wants to see our kids being hurt. We need to work together as mentioned, we need to have, the proper gun controls and safety measures needed there to avoid young kids getting their hands on guns. Everybody has the right to bear arms, but we have to make sure it's being done in a safe and sensible fashion that is not going to be coming back to our school systems.
All right, I want to shift gears over to water. We'll go first with you, Councilman Rosales, this time. And, we do have the Colorado River supply declining, with states arguing over who's going to get what. We do have aquifers that are drying up in our state. What does the state need to do to assure a secure water supply for future generations?
I think we've already, at the state level, this past session, some movement was already done there. We need to stop foreign corporations from coming into our states and using our crops and our water and then shipping it out to other countries. We need to focus on our residents, and not only in the state of Arizona, but in the United States in whole. The Colorado River affects various states, as we all know. I give credit to all our local farmers. As you know, Yuma County provides about 90 to 95% of the green lettuce during the winter seasons. And our farmers in the past couple of years have stepped up and done a great job in farming with the least water possible needed on their end. But there has to be a limit. We can't continue to ask the farmers to not use that much water. They need the water for the crops as the population grows. But we need to make policy that reduces maybe consumption. And I know we've done it. I know they've done it as a real estate agent. Local municipalities, changing ordinances to make sure that you're not watering during the day. Making sure that there's some kind of oversight on how people waste their water. There's a proper way to waste it. Even communities. I was at the Cities and Leagues, Arizona Cities and Leagues conference last week, and they were showing us how they've been able to reclaim the water and pretty much wastewater, make it 99% usable again. So there's technology out there. We just have to figure out which is the best way to do it policy-wise, and support our farmers, and also make sure that the adequate waters are for the growing state that we have here in the growing population that we have in our state.
All right, over to you, Representative Sandoval. Your thoughts on ensuring that we have that water we need for future generations?
Well, we have to do several things. We need a sound water policy that unfortunately we haven't been able to establish. The governor worked on an active management. She has a proposal for active management areas in rural management plans, and that we haven't been able to pass any of it again because we our bills don't get hurt, right? So that's an issue. I know that it varies by county, right? Because all the counties have different access to different waters. Like down in Yuma County, they have the Colorado, right? And 7 states claim water from that space. In Pima County and Maricopa County, it's capped, so it's different. And we currently have six active management areas, but 80% of the landmass is unregulated water pumping. So we really need to make sure that we continue to push for an update on groundwater management of the 1980 Act. Because when that was designated, because we also have tribes in our district, the tribes were left out of the table. And we keep saying, they keep pushing it down the road, but now it's 2024 and it still hasn't been addressed. And so we also need to address water quality, because there's folks down in Pima County that in our district that are on the 5th generation of illness because of contaminated water. And so if we don't get water policy right, nothing else will matter. And water is a complex issue, but it's very necessary for all of us.
I want to shift gears over to housing. Obviously, housing affordability, huge issue in our state right now. What specific policies would you support to make housing more accessible to middle and low income earners? And we'll start with you this time, Representative Sandoval.
Okay. I would support loan programs for low and middle income families. Financial education regarding credit. Sometimes people don't know how to build their credit, how to strengthen their credit. So we need more financial education. Also incentivize first-time homebuyer programs, smaller lot sizes and smaller houses, light take taxes for companies to build affordable housing. And in some instances, because of some of these housing laws that were instituted back in the Jim Crow era, where they were specifically meant to keep certain people of color out of certain areas. Some of these we may need to, we may need to take some of that authority from cities that still haven't updated some of these laws that are still in the books. I support local control, but in some instances where cities are not moving on things that were based on racist laws that were keeping people out, I think we may need to take action.
All right, over to you, Councilman Rosales, and same question: how do you make housing more accessible to middle and low income earners? And Representative Sandoval brought up the issue of zoning and the question of whether the state should step in and override the local control of zoning. And your thoughts on those?
Well, I have a probably a little different perspective being a realtor, and also fortunate of as I mentioned prior that I work for Comité de Bienestar, which is one of the local nonprofits here in our community, who has pretty much built about 60% of the San Luis since its original incorporation in 1979. They've always worked for low income housing, and not only low income housing, but they also work for first time buyers, and they have the education classes available for people wanting to purchase their home. They utilize tax credits, they utilize grants that are offered by the state, and they pass that on to the consumer to make it affordable for them. They also develop utilizing these community housing grants that they receive from nationwide to be able to offer their homes usually $20,000-$30,000 cheaper than a regular developer competition wise. We need to continue to work on policies and tax and support tax credits for even the retirees. There's a lot of people that own their homes and have a lot of equity in it, and they want to downsize, but they can't because at the federal level, which is something that we need to support and talk to our federal leaders, is they need to increase that tax credit available for them to be able to sell those homes, which will free it up for other people and make it more affordable. So there's many different ways we could work to be able to maintain affordability and keep the prices down. Here in San Luis, Arizona, we have so much land that is federally owned or Bureau Land Management or state trust land that is just mixed into the community that can be utilized maybe for affordable housing if we put some conditions and policy that says, all right, if you're going to utilize this land, you have to continue to use so many lots for, low income or certain incomes. We're finishing right now a townhome project. It's going to be 31 units, and they're made because of the tax credits for first-time buyers or people with an 80% to income based on their income. So it controls investors coming in here from California, buying them and just making them for rentals. So there's a lot of different things we could do. In regards to the zoning question, being on the city council, I understand, that every community is different. So at the state level, an idea or concept might sound right and work for downtown Phoenix, but it's not going to work for San Luis, Somerton, or Goodyear, or Buckeye, or West Tucson. So we have to leave that at the municipality level, but offer the assistance at the state level if they need that help as well.
All right, let's shift gears over to the abortion topic. Do you support the Abortion Access Act on the November ballot, Councilman Rosales?
I think it's every woman's right and their doctors to make that decision. So I support us as legislators not being involved in that decision and not making it political. Every woman's right. This one's kind of sensitive to me because, like I mentioned, I've been in council for 12 years. My wife has always stayed away from the political realm or my council functions. But the day that I got home, the day that that abortions were banned, or the day that our opponent voted to pass that 1864 abortion ban, I got home and my wife was crying. We have a 20-year-old daughter, and for her, this was the first time I saw her say, "I want to get active, I want to get out there, and I want to do something about it." So, in my opinion, it is up to the family and their doctor to make the decision, and I support women's choice.
All right, over to you, Representative Sandoval. Same question.
Well, I believe that the courts and the government have no business making choices for anyone in their healthcare decisions. That's not up to us. These are very difficult and personal decisions and choices that people have to make, and that should be done between them, their husband, their doctor, their spiritual guide, or whatever people believe. That is not up to me to decide. I shouldn't be making choices for other people. And also I understand that sometimes people have complications during pregnancy, and God forbid they needed to get access to a doctor. It's not up to us. It's not a choice that we should be making for people.
Let's switch over to immigration. You guys, this legislative district 23 is border district. Uh, do you support the Prop 314, which would, among other provisions, get local law enforcement involved in immigration enforcement? And that first question, the question first goes to you, Representative Sandoval.
I do not. It is an unfunded mandate, and it's also at the purview of the federal government. They're in charge of the border. We are not in charge of the border. I feel like we should have learned from SB 1070. This is SB 1070 2.0 on steroids. And we didn't. We saw the amount of damage that it cost to our state, not only financially, people left, but also like the reputation that we got from that law. People boycotting us, people canceling conferences, our tourism was affected by it, and it's just bad law. That's why when the Republican-led legislature passed that law and moved it onto the governor's desk, she vetoed it. And because she vetoed it, then they decided to put it in the ballot and decided to throw other things in there, like, criminalizing for the fentanyl use. Fentanyl is an issue that we all know that don't want in our communities. Nobody wants criminals, nobody wants fentanyl, but we are seeing that the fentanyl that is entering Arizona is coming through legal ports of entry by US citizens. And what that tells me is that the people down at the border are doing their job. We have the numbers of the fentanyl that we're getting at the border because they're doing their job, they're capturing it. As Councilman has mentioned, San Luis is considered one of the safest cities in the country. It is literally up against the border. And I think the farther away that people, the farther north people get from the border, the more fear mongering and border issues that they have in their mind, or I don't know where they're listening or who they're listening to, because I'm down there constantly talking to the people, walking, talking to voters. Not once has anyone mentioned to me that lives in San Luis that the border or anything related to the border is an issue to them. They're concerned about good schools, high-paying jobs, healthcare access. There is no hospital in San Luis. Those are the issues that is important to people down there, not the border.
Councilman Rosales.
I totally agree. I will add that, our city doesn't City of San Luis, again, and I use that as a reference because that's where my knowledge is for the past 12 years in regards to the border and what I know about living there, because I live there. My kids walk to the park, they're safe. Immigration system, we all know, is broken. At the federal level, we do need some kind of comprehensive immigration reform. I think we all could agree on that as well. Our country was built on immigration, on immigrants, but we need to make sure that people understand that our border communities are safe and our district needs the support. Our own officers in our community, as mentioned by Senator Brian Fernandez, they don't want to be having to pull over people and be racial profiling because of a law that passed. And Prop 314 is not the answer. We need to support our police officers and our community and let them do what they do, is and protect the residents, the taxpayers that pay for those services, and let the federal government provide the tools necessary, which they are. Again, going back to City of San Luis, we're getting a brand new port of entry. It currently was built in 1980. It has 8 lanes. It's going to be expanded to 16 lanes, $380 million investment. But that's one aspect of it. The port of entry, when it's completed, is going to have the newest technology for safety for our officers, CBP officers, for the legal trade that's coming through, and also the tools and technology needed to stop the illegal trade that is trying to pass through our ports of entry. So we need to invest in our ports of entry so they have those tools to be able to help all the illegal activity that's trying to pass through the ports of entry. But Prop 314 is not the way to go. As Representative Mariana Sandoval mentioned, it's a way around something that didn't pass and got vetoed. We need to work on other issues affecting our communities and not something that we can't control.
Councilman Rosales, we'll start with you on this one. And does the state have a role at all in terms of border enforcement?
No. The state itself, that I know of, does not have. Our local municipalities, our local police officers don't. So this is something at the federal level, and we need to work together and provide them the input that they need to be able to make these decisions at the federal level, and share the information being here locally on the ground. So they have the right information and not this fake news that you'd be hearing on the news. Earlier, the candidate running against Mr. Fernandez mentioned that the gates are open and people are crossing through, and just that is not true. I live there. I don't see that. I mean, they're asylum seekers. They're going through the process. It is not something that the state needs to be involved in. At the state legislator level, it's not something we would be involved in.
All right. Representative Sandoval, any role for the state, do you think, in border enforcement?
Yeah, we need to put pressure on the federal government to fully fund their officers. We need Congress to act. We need immigration reform. They had a bipartisan bill that would have addressed these issues, and they refused to hear it because the former president instructed congressional Republicans not to move forward because it would help him in his race. And so that's what we need to do. We need to continue to pressure the federal government to put enough officers on the line to fully fund what they need to do at the border so that they can take care of this issue. And the governor, when needed, did send the National Guard. So the problem with that is that, and people may not know this, they're not allowed legally to process migrants. Only immigration officers can do that. And I was told this by the Yuma County Regional Immigration when I went to do a border tour in Yuma. They're helpful with maybe paperwork or some other task, but they cannot help with immigrants coming in. And so what we can do as a state is continue to put pressure on the federal government to fully fund the personnel that they need to be at the border and expedite this and put pressure in Congress to get immigration reform passed as soon as possible.
Let's wrap this up with one last question about the economy. Representative Sandoval, what does the state need to do in order to create better paying jobs?
Well, we need to take control. The Democrats need to control the state legislature so that we can actually pass laws that would help. I am working, I don't know if you've heard of the One Fair Wage. It was an initiative that they were trying to get on the ballot, and it's basically to eliminate sub-minimum wage wages for tip workers, because it is legal right now to pay them less than minimum wage. And so that is one of the ways that we can help. I'm going to carry that legislation, allowing the elimination of the sub-minimum wage so that we can increase the wages for all Arizonans here in our state, because we know that wages have not kept up with inflation. And we know that corporations have been taking advantage. They took advantage during COVID, inflated prices. There was price gouging. Kroger admitted to this. And so we need to make sure that we do that. We also need to make sure that we are providing universal health care. That is like the number one reason why Arizonans file for bankruptcy, because they can't afford the medical help that they need, that we all need, right? We saw how critical that was during the pandemic, that people that didn't have access to healthcare doesn't just affect the people that don't have access. It affects all of us because we're all breathing the same air. We're all in the same space. And so this is something that will help all of us, right? We also need to make sure that we are working with employers like TSMC and some other trades and partnerships with schools to create careers that are high paying right out of high school so that people can make a good living and not necessarily have to spend all that money in college. College is important, but college is not for everyone. As a school board member of a high school board, I saw that there were some kids that were not interested in going to college. They wanted to go to trade school. And those are really important jobs. And they're well-paid jobs, these union jobs, right? We also need to repeal the right to work in Arizona so that we can have those good paying jobs and people can have more money in their pockets. And be able to spend, because that's what creates jobs. The jobs are created when you put more money in people's pockets and they're spending and consuming, and then those companies will create more jobs because there's more demand. It's a lie that businesses create jobs. Businesses do not create jobs. It is the consumer that has the money, that spends the money, that creates the jobs. So we need to put more money in people's pockets so that we can create more jobs.
And Councilman Rosales, same question to you. What does the state need to do to create better paying jobs?
As Ms. Sandoval mentioned, our opponent voted to reduce the minimum wage for tip workers. We need to work to expand the economic opportunities here in our state and creating good paying jobs. Trade education for our youth, it's something that we're seeing increasing again. 10 years ago, it kind of went south, and now it's starting to come back, and we see the demand for it. Serving as a chairman of the Greater Yuma Port Authority, one of our biggest assets that we have here in our state is our border. We border Mexico. And we all understand that supply chain is what creates more income to our state. Just San Luis itself, last year imported over $1.8 billion in imports and trade. And as the supply chain overseas continues to get more expensive, we're seeing companies come back to Mexico, and Mexico has a direct connection to Arizona. And most of that is LD23 district. So we need to work on policies and work on programs that will attract these companies that will come into our state and create the jobs that would allow our residents to make the good paying jobs. So from there, they could go ahead and, as mentioned, you'll start seeing more restaurants open. You start seeing more extra activity type of businesses open for our community. So we got to utilize what we have. We have California next to us that everybody wants to leave California. The companies are coming to Arizona. We have Mexico that's receiving the supply chains from China, from Taiwan, from all other countries, and moving back to Mexico, and create that business partnership with all these venues that connect to Arizona.
All right, and I think we'll end it there, but I want to give you each an opportunity to give a closing statement. And let's start with Representative Sandoval, and you wrap it up in a minute or so.
Great. Well, thank you again, Jim, and thank you, Clean Elections, for hosting this debate tonight, or this, it wasn't really a debate, discussion. I appreciate your time here today. I feel incredibly honored and humbled in the ways which I've been able to serve our community. The work we've done has been meaningful and impactful. The voters of Legislative District 23 have an important choice to make this November 5th. You will choose 2 state representatives. The legislature has the power to shape our everyday lives. These seats can change the control of our state legislature, and we still have much work to do. We hope that you will vote for myself, Mariana Sandoval, and Matias Rosales this election in November. Because together we can fully fund K-12 public schools, advocate for housing, affordable housing, enact universal health care, lower prescription drugs, protect our voting rights and our democracy, and protect our water and natural resources, as well as reproductive rights. I will continue to advocate every day the same way I advocate for my own family. I look forward to earning your trust, your support, and your vote on November 5th. Please visit my website, sandovalforac.com, for more information, or follow me on social media at sandovalforac. Thank you so much.
All right, and thank you. Councilman Rosales, wrap her up with a closing statement here.
Thank you, Jim, and again, thank you, Clean Elections. I was reminiscing, when we did this first candidate forum or debate, 2 months ago before the primaries, and it's just I'm humbled to be here again and after the primaries and have the opportunity to go through the general. I ask everybody to go out there and vote. On behalf of my family and my 4 kids and my wife, we ask for your support to remember, vote for 2 people. Vote for Ms. Sandoval and myself in this coming November 5th election. If you haven't registered to vote, please register. If you don't know if your ballot is going to be mailed or not, call the county, call your county recorders. It's really county voter services is real easy. But I am fortunate to be here, and I want to continue to serve my community. I don't want my end of my council to be the end of my service. I do it because I enjoy it. I love it. I want to make my community better for my kids. My son is 25 years old, as I mentioned earlier, and he's actually running for council. He goes, Dad, I seen what you were able to do these past 12 years. I want to run for council. Is that okay? I go, you don't need my permission. You're 25 years old. I'm honored, and I'm blessed to see that you've learned what you've learned from me in these past 12 years, and you're ready to take on that responsibility and continue to serve the community of the city of San Luis. And with his support, and when we make it to the November 5th elections and we win at the state, I'm excited to see what we could do for our community and our state and bring some change. And hopefully come around next year, we'll see some positive impact and new policies being brought out for all our residents. I'm honored to be supported right now and endorsed by so many unions and so many organizations that have reached out to me and given their support. Teachers, iron workers, sheet metal workers, the Fire Association, nurses endorsement. So I'm honored, and visit my website as well. It might not be as easy as Ms. Sandoval's. Mine is matiasrosales.com. So the spelling might be a little bit tricky. It's just my name, matiasrosales.com. My social media is also my name, Matias Rosales. And follow us. And if you want to volunteer, volunteer. A lot of candidates need volunteerism as well as us. And our district is large. We cover 4 different counties from Yuma, San Luis, Tucson, Goodyear, Buckeye, Ajo, Gila Bend, and the nations. So go out and vote, and thank you everybody for allowing us this opportunity tonight.
Well, thank you both for participating tonight. Your Republican opponent, Michelle Pena, declined to join us this evening. We also want to thank the voters who took the time to watch our discussion tonight and inform themselves before the November 5th election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. I'm Jim Ninsel with the Tucson Sentinel on behalf of Clean Elections. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.